So let's talk about this nightmare scenario in a stimulus. There is this, really, it is a nightmare scenario playing out for Wall Street and the American people, and it's playing out right before our eyes on these battleground states. We'll get to that in a second. But we'll start with this because President Trump yesterday announced, he admitted no stimulus coming before the election. Done. We already knew that, though. We've been saying it here for weeks. It's not going to happen. We weren't going to really report on anything stimulus related unless we had some actual news on the stimulus front, and now we do. President Trump officially saying there won't be any stimulus before Election Day, in addition to which we've now seen a letter that Nancy Pelosi sent to Steven Mnuchin, really pointing out all of the areas that they are fully removed or far apart on. Interestingly, back on October 15th, Steven Mnuchin said, and I quote, "When I speak to Pelosi today," this is 2 weeks ago, "I'm going to tell her that we're not going to let the testing issue stand in the way of stimulus. We'll fundamentally agree with their testing language subject to minor issues," end quote. So October 15th, Mnuchin says testing, we're not going to let that interfere. We're going to get this done. Yesterday, Pelosi in her letter, "We still have not received a final answer on testing." So she sends a letter to him like, "Hey, we've been waiting on this testing thing for 2 weeks now. Where are you on this?" Beyond that, though, Wall Street took a nosedive yesterday, down nearly almost 1,000 points. They're joining all of their European friends right now, all of the markets across Europe. Of course, additional lockdowns unfolding now across Europe, France. We'll get to all those lockdowns and coronavirus map in just a minute. But the nightmare scenario now playing out on a stimulus has to do with the election, specifically the Senate. So let me put up this map here. And this is what Wall Street is most nervous about, because Wall Street had been hoping that President Trump would come out and say, "We've got a stimulus plan" before the election, that we wouldn't have to deal with the uncertainty of an election in order to get stimulus through. Well, guess what, folks? Here's the nightmare scenario. The nightmare scenario is if Vice President Biden wins, which is by all accounts going to happen at this point. All of the polling shows that that's the case. If Biden wins, but the Senate remains Republican. So I want you to take a look at this map right here. This is the Senate map. These are the latest numbers. Zoom in a little bit here for you. So these are the latest numbers. There are only 9 seats up for grabs. See any of these seats right now that are in gray. These are the toss-up states. Go up there to Maine, Susan Collins, battleground state right now for Maine. Susan Collins trying to hang on to her Republican seat. North Carolina, South Carolina, Lindsey Graham in a tight race in South Carolina, begging for money on Fox News Channel. Iowa, Joni Ernst in a tight race in Iowa. Doesn't know the cost of soybeans. Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, and Arizona, Georgia. So these are all states right now where this is a very tight race when it comes to the Senate. So what happens here if the Senate stays Republican? Nightmare. Senate does not want, and especially if it's an emboldened Republican Senate. If Mitch McConnell wins re-election, I mean, look at this. Mitch McConnell, easily one of the most disliked senators in the country. And I'm not making that up. That's the truth. Even among his Kentuckians, he's incredibly low level approval rating. And yet he always wins because of big money. So when you look at Kentucky, he's winning there right now. Look at it in pink, not red, but pink. He'll probably win against Amy McGrath. Alabama, who knows? So if the Senate remains Republican, then nothing will happen, because everyone's saying, well, if Joe Biden wins, and great, then I guess the Senate will be blue as well, and the House will be blue, and then come January, Joe can push through a big package. Joe Biden can push through a big stimulus package and cram all kinds of stuff in there on the environment, and the list would go on. Infrastructure, it would be massive, especially if they have a super majority. But the Senate shaping up to have issues now. And if the Senate remains in Mitch McConnell's hands, nada. That's what Wall Street is most concerned with. It's the uncertainty of the election is troubling for them. But even more damning is the potential that it could actually end up be totally deadlocked, gridlocked in Congress, which is what it's been for a long time anyway. But now this would be solidified for many years to come. So Biden getting anything through on a stimulus plan, not going to happen. And we already know that Republicans have no taste in the Senate to pass a larger stimulus right now. You think they're going to do it under President Biden? No way. The other reason we're now seeing that this Senate map is so tight is because of the Supreme Court. Mitch McConnell coming out yesterday saying, hey, look, because we've been able to get through Amy Coney Barrett, some of those tight Senate races have now moved in our direction. Because they were able to push through Amy Coney Barrett, a conservative on the Supreme Court. And Mitch McConnell basically admitted yesterday, he said this, that now has helped some of those vulnerable Republicans. I hate to bring this nightmare scenario to you, but the fact that Wall Street is seeing it in, as bright as day. This is why, if you were trying to understand yesterday, why did the stock market plunge 1,000 points? Is it just because Trump said no stimulus before Election Day? Yeah. But now it's some of the latest polling out of the Senate that looks like we could have a totally gridlocked government over the next 2 years until we have new Senate elections, etc. So where are we right now in the election? Well, let's take a look at some of the other data that's out this morning. Here's the broader map right now in the presidential race. Right now, 181 electoral votes up for grabs across the country. Biden has clearly 232 already in the can. And Trump has 125 clearly already in the can. Now, a number of states have now officially moved, according to Inside Elections, from leaning one way or the other to toss-up. Texas has now moved to a toss-up state, officially. Arizona, toss-up. Nevada, toss-up. Florida, toss-up. Georgia moves from toss-up to now tilting Democratic. North Carolina has now moved from toss-up to tilting Democratic. Wisconsin, where President Trump has been spending a boatload of time, still a toss-up. Pennsylvania, a toss-up. Pennsylvania, Joe Biden has about a 5-point lead right now. So let's analyze Pennsylvania, my home state. Very tricky state, right? You have Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, of course, larger urban areas, of course, usually vote Democratic. But you have the middle of the state, which we kind of grew up in Pennsylvania. It was called, a lot of people would jokingly call it, Pennsyltucky. Pennsyltucky. So that's good news. That's good news. Just got some good news on my baby girl. Okay, good. Good. Okay. Anyway, so Pennsylvania in the center of the state has traditionally, it can be toss-up depending on, when Bill Clinton, when Barack Obama, went for Trump instead of Hillary. So it can fluctuate, it can undulate, if you will. But President Trump has been pushing he's trying to close with going back to his roots on these issues, talking about fracking, talking about closing up the oil industry, how it's going to hurt Pennsylvania jobs, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things that he's trying to hit on right now. So Biden is up in Pennsylvania about five, almost 6 points. Hillary Clinton was up also in the last minute polling. Even on election day, Hillary was up by, I think, 2 points in Pennsylvania, or 1.5 points. She loses Pennsylvania by almost like 0.7. So if you think about those numbers, let's think about the Hillary numbers for a second. In Pennsylvania, she's up 2 points, or 1.5 points on election day. The very polling that came out on election day in Pennsylvania. And I remember I was out in Butler, Pennsylvania that day covering the election in a the excitement for Trump out there was strong in Butler, Pennsylvania. Not so much anymore. That has faded. Not a ton, but it's faded significantly. Enough that Joe Biden can make a play there and pull this victory off in Pennsylvania. So right now, the margin of error even if Biden is with 5 points and you still take away those 2 Hillary points, he's still up and still wins with 5 days left. Now, things could shift. I don't think they're going to shift that much in 5 days, though. If this, what we've seen so far is these numbers have held strong for months and they haven't moved. People have made up their mind on this. So Pennsylvania, if he loses Pennsylvania and Florida, it's over. It's over before the cows come home. So Florida, of course, is another toss-up state. Interestingly, though, President Trump has pulled up a lot of advertising, $5 million in ad spending in Florida. President Trump is now, he's still running about $300,000 left that he has to spend in Florida, but he's taking that additional $5 million and putting it into Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and reallocating that money. What do you make of that? Think Trump loses Florida? Or do you think he's so confident in Florida that he's going to pull up the ad spending there? Interesting to look. Certainly the Latino population is a very strong Cuban-American population that's supporting Trump in Florida. So interesting to see the Latino dynamic in Florida and a lot of those New Yorkers who have moved to Florida over the past few years. How do they stack up? How do they help influence this? There's been a mass exodus from New Jersey and New York to the Sunshine State. So all of this, of course, comes on the backdrop of coronavirus. So the latest coronavirus news this morning is not good. In the final week before election, new coronavirus infections have soared to an all-time high. The data out this morning is really troubling in the United States. And of course, we can thank this cold weather for all of this, right? Look at Maine right now, 54% increase. So these states up in this cold weather area, 51% increase. Now everyone's going indoors, mingling with each other. 124% increase in Vermont. New Hampshire up. All of these states in brown are increasing. Dark brown, Vermont, most trouble. This is bad. So this is virtually guaranteeing, folks, that the pandemic will be the most prominent issue in America as voters choose the next president. Clearly, unemployment, pandemic, top of the list. That's not the way it was back in January, though, was it? The big picture right now, cases are surging and local hospitals are straining. President Trump, of course, continuing to say that, hey, we're rounding the corner. This is done. We're done with this thing. Remember during the debate, he said, we're rounding the corner. We're done. Yesterday, he was at a campaign stop. And at a campaign stop, he said the same thing. He said, we are turning the corner. It's perfect. He said, look at this. It's perfect. He said, we're rounding, he said, like this racetrack. He was speaking at a racetrack. He said, look at this. We're rounding like this racetrack. Look at this. It's perfect. We're rounding the curve. We will vanquish the virus, he said. Here's what he said at the debate, if you forgot.
It will go away. And as I say, we're rounding the turn. We're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay. Now we're at a record, an all-time high. And by the way, those states, remember during the debate when he said, they had a spike in Texas, they had a spike in Wisconsin, and it went away. It went away. He said that during the debate a week ago. Well, look at the map again. Look where these spikes are happening again. Texas, Wisconsin, areas that he said it went away. Well, it's back. It's back. Meanwhile, does Joe Biden have a plan for coronavirus other than like a national mask mandate? I don't know. I don't think he has much of anything. Democrats are, of course, playing the card right now that the pandemic is all Trump's fault. And that their lack of action back in February and March are the reason we're in this predicament right now. No national leadership on this front. I've been saying that. There's been no national leadership. But what's your alternative? What can you, a national mask mandate? Pushing for a vaccine? We're already doing that. What else is there? What is your plan, Joe? I haven't heard much of anything.
Come on, man.
Sorry. Joe Biden said yesterday, quote, even if I win, it's going to take a lot of hard work to end this pandemic. I'm not running on the false promise of being able to end this pandemic by flipping a switch. We will start on day one doing the right things. We'll let science drive our decisions. Okay, but what are those things? That's what I'm asking. What are those things? No one expects anyone to be able to flip a switch on this. Look at Germany this morning. New lockdowns throughout Europe. Germany, Angela Merkel they were being heralded as the saviors of coronavirus. Science in Germany, testing, tracing, all of that. Science, science, science. Great. Germany announced a full month lockdown now with closures of restaurants, bars, gyms until the end of November. Schools, businesses, and shops can stay open as long as distancing measures are followed. France, which our hearts go out to that country this morning, yet another terrorist attack there, as a man yelling Allah Akbar kills 3 individuals, beheads 2 of them in Nice, France. France announced a stricter lockdown until December 1st, closing all restaurants and shops. Primary schools will remain in person, but universities are asked to go online. Taiwan. What is Taiwan doing right? Well, number one, it's an island. It holds the world record right now for 200 days without a new COVID case. I love how we praise all these island countries. New Zealand. God, you have no COVID. And your borders are closed and you're an island. So unless COVID people are parachuting in, spreading COVID, like, oh no, here comes another one. He's jumping out of that plane. Run. It's COVID Johnny. He's jumping in here. Seal your borders and don't let anyone in. Australia, the same thing. I have a friend in Australia who had her second child, and my old co-host, Anna, by the way, and her parents in America haven't been able to see the child yet. She had it. Did she have it during lockdown? February? January, February. And her parents in North Carolina haven't been able to see him. Sad, isn't that? It's crazy. And there's no sign that that's going to happen anytime soon. He might be 1 year old before he even gets to meet her grandparents. But that's why there's no COVID there. They've locked down these island towns, these island countries. So these numbers are scary, folks. I want to tell you about today's sponsor, our friends over at Outlet Finance. So if you want a 6% interest savings account, where you can move some of this money right now. Many of you were asking yesterday about, hey, I got this 401k, I want to move some money out of it, where should I put it? Well, I have a savings account that I use, gives you a 6% return annually on every dollar you put in there. You will never get that at your local bank. Why? Because it's backed by cryptocurrency. It's backed by Ethereum. So you can deposit your money anytime, withdraw it at any time. They've got insurance on your money, and they will deposit free money into your account just for opening account. It's just a savings account. So you can put $100 in there. You can test it out for a month, see what you like. You get to see your interest every week popping up inside the app. It's really cool. So the way to get that free money, you have to use our link. Go to morninginvest.com/outlet. It's not available in every state. I have a meeting with them. They're going to fill me in on, they're working on Texas and New York. They're going to be adding some of these states. Some states have higher regulation they have to deal with. So it is backed by cryptocurrency. Go to morninginvest.com/outlet to start earning 6% on every dollar that you have in your savings account, rather than losing money every day when you have it in one of those Wells Fargo or other savings accounts where you have a 0.001% return on interest. That means, and inflation is 2%, that means you're losing money every day that your money is in one of those savings accounts. So at least get an account that helps you beat inflation. That's the goal. So our thanks to Outlet.